Good day everyone, this is Kaye Manigos and my topic in logic is obversion. This kind of induction where a new proposition is formulated by retaining the subject term and the quantity of the original proposition. However, the quality of the original proposition is changed and the predicate term is replaced by its contradictory. So, obversion is an inference formed by changing the quality of proposition and replacing the predicate term by its complement. Obversion is valid for any standard form of categorical proposition. Obversion is, however, applicable to all kinds of categorical propositions, the A, E, I, and O. So here are the different types of categorical propositions. So A proposition stands for the universal affirmative where quantity of the predicate is particular. E proposition is for universal negative where quantity of the predicate is universal. I proposition is for particular affirmative where quantity of the predicate is particular, and O proposition is for particular negative where quantity of the predicate is universal. The quality helps to determine the kind of categorical the proposition is. The relation of inclusion or exclusion is determined by the copula. When the relation is inclusion, the proposition is called affirmative. When we say affirmative, something is being affirmed or agreed. And when the relation is exclusion, the proposition is called negative. When we say negative, something is denied or negated. Usually use the words no, not, and nobody. The copula is always some form of the verb to be. Example of verb to be, are, is, was, and were. In terms of quantity, the proportion of the subject term about which the proposition makes a claim, only two proportions matter in categorical logic: all and less than all. If the whole subject class is referred to, the statement is called universal. If less than the whole is referred to, the statement is called particular. Simply put, in a version, a new proposition or the obverse is being formulated through the following. First, by retaining the subject term and quantity of the original position or the overtend. Second, by changing the quality of the original proposition from affirmative to negative or from negative to affirmative in the obverse. And third, by replacing the predicate of the original proposition to its contradictory in obverse. The premise and the conclusion of obversion are known as obvertend and obverse respectively. In obversion, we get an affirmative equivalent of a negative proposition or a negative equivalent of an affirmative proposition. So, example number 1, we have there the obvertend, all men are mortal, and its obverse is no men are non-mortal. So, let an A proposition of the form all men are mortal be our overtend. To obtain its obverse, let us follow the following instructions. The subject of the obverse would be men, since it is stated in the first condition that the subject of the obverse is same as that of the subject of the overtend. Next, the predicate of the obverse is the contradictory of the predicate of the overtend. So, the predicate in the obverse is non-mortal. Since we denied or we contradict the predicate of the overtend. According to the third condition, the quality of the overtend is affirmative. It is affirmative because it does not contain any negative words. No men are non-mortal which is the obverse, it is negative since it uses the quantifier word, which is no, that makes the quality negative. And lastly, the quantity of the obverse is same as that of the quantity of the overtend. So, since the overtend is universal, the obverse is also universal. All these consideration imply that the aversion of an A proposition is an E proposition. Second example, no men are mortal, which is the overtend, and all men are non-mortal, which is the obverse. So let an E proposition of the form men are non-mortal be our overtend. To find the obverse of an E proposition, we follow the following instructions. So the subject of the obverse would be men, since it is stated in the first condition that the subject of the obverse is same as that of the subject of the overtend. Next, the predicate of the obverse is the contradictory of the predicate of the overtend. So, the predicate in the obverse is non-mortal since we denied or we contradict the predicate of the overtend. According to the third condition, the quality of the obverse is affirmative as the overtend is negative. So as we look at the example, no men are mortal, which is the overtend, it is negative. It contains negative word. All men are non-mortal, which is the obverse, it is affirmative. It does not contain any negative word. The word none there is just a contradictory word for the predicate in the overtend. Lastly, the quantity of the obverse is same as that of the quantity of the overtend. So, since the overtend is universal, the obverse is also universal. So, all these considerations imply that the aversion of an E proposition is an A proposition. Third example, some men are mortal, which is the overtend, and some men are not non-mortal, which is the obverse. So let the overtend be an I proposition of the form, some men are mortal. Then, to obtain its obverse, men would be the subject of the obverse. Then, mortal being the predicate of the overtend, non-mortal would be the predicate of the obverse. Next, the obverse would be a negative proposition as the overtend is an affirmative proposition. Finally, according to the fourth condition, the obverse would be particular as the overtend is particular. Therefore, taking all this into account, we conclude that the obverse of an I proposition is an O proposition. So we have now the last example. Some men are not mortal, which is the overtend, and some men are non-mortal, which is the obverse. Some men are not mortal is an O proposition for which we now try to obtain its obverse. As explained earlier, according to the first and second condition of the definition of aversion, the subject and the predicate of the obverse would be men and non-mortal respectively. But the third condition of the obverse would be affirmative as the overtend is negative. Finally, according to the condition, the obverse would be particular as the overtend is particular. From all this consideration, we conclude that the obverse of an O proposition is an I proposition. So, we may now summarize the immediate inference relating to aversion. So, in terms of quality, in the examples, the first and third are affirmative. The copula does not work with any negating word. The second and fourth examples are negative. In the second, the copula works with the word no to indicate exclusion. In the fourth, the copula works with the word not. The quality helps to determine the kind of categorical the proposition is. So in terms of quantity, In the examples above, the first and second are universal, typically indicated by words like all, every, no, and none, but not always. The third and fourth examples above are particular, typically indicated by the word some, but not always. So, that's all for this topic. Thank you and God bless.